Hi! On today's episode, we're going to delve into a topic that gives people a hard time when learning a foreign language. A topic that frustrates learners of languages all over the world. Today, we're talking about verb conjugation. I'm sure most of us, when learning a foreign language, have struggled with verb conjugation. Most languages have it, including, but not limited to, Korean, Spanish, German, Russian, Irish, Greek, Armenian, and Turkish. Here's an example of a conjugation chart for a verb in Spanish. Anyone who studies a foreign language will probably know exactly what this is. But how did this develop? For those who don't know, verb conjugation is when a verb changes to agree with the subject of a sentence, or in some languages like Basque, the object. In Ellie van Galderen's book, The Linguistics Cycle, she argues that verb conjugation evolves in a cycle. English is a good example of the beginning of the cycle, where the verb has no information about who's doing the verbing. In English, ran cannot be a complete sentence because it lacks a subject. We have to say, I ran, or you ran, or he ran. In other languages, they would permit saying ran by itself because ran in those languages would give information about who the subject was. To illustrate the cycle, we're going to take a look at Brazilian Portuguese. Now in Portuguese, there exist two ways to say singular you. Tu and você. Tu is informal and você is formal, and each one has different conjugated forms. Let's take the verb comer, which means to eat. You'd say tu comes and você come. Portuguese from Portugal uses both of these forms extensively, but in Brazil, tu is falling out of use, and so você is becoming the only way to say you in the language. Now let's say you want to say he eats. In Brazil, that would be ele come. Now notice how that's the same as você come? And since in Portuguese the pronouns are optional, a lot of times you'd find come by itself, which would lead to the question, do you mean he eats or you eat? Now in certain dialects of Brazilian Portuguese, the word se has begun to appear. One would be inclined to think that se is just a shortened version of você. This is apparent because you can say você come, se come. Você já viu isso, se já viu isso. However, there's one problem with this analysis. You cannot say eu como com você, you have to say eu como com você. You also cannot say eu quero ver você, you have to say eu quero ver você. It's not that it's improper to use it, it's just that you'll never find a Brazilian person who will use se like this. In fact, the only time you can use se is when it's the subject of a sentence. Since the conjugation of he eats and you eat has become the same, it's difficult to distinguish whether you mean him or you. And thus the word se has emerged to help distinguish the two. Now we can predict that in the future of the language, based on the model presented by Ellie van Gelderen, that se would spread to use and eventually become a conjugation marker for você. So for example, you would say se come and it would be treated as one word. If you really want to emphasize that you eat, you would say você se come. Of course, this is just an example of how verb conjugation might start in a language. If you like this video or have linguistic questions, like or leave a comment below. I'll be releasing linguistics videos weekly. I'm Eric Borja, and that is How You Linguistics. Also, I would like to thank my Brazilian friend Antonio for being my informant for the preliminary research I did for this video. Hi! On today's episode, I'm going to delve into a topic that gives people a hard time when learning. Wow.
Okay, go. You can do it again.
Learning Christmas.
I didn't like it in the picture.